We're going to be doing a drawing revisited project for the next few weeks, and you're going to be finding an old drawing you've done. So I was looking through my old sketchbooks. You may want to look at old drawings, old sketchbooks. It doesn't need to be a sketchbook drawing. And you're going to be doing some kind of revisitation. So it could be re-envisioning it, reworking it, continuing it like a series. You're going to be able to, pick whether you're switching up the size and shape, the medium, pulling something from the original, maybe continuing it like a series, redoing it. It could be any or all of the above. And we're going to be, like I said, working out for 2 weeks. You'll be posting your original drawing that you select to work from and then your process and completed drawings. So these are just some drawings I found in my sketchbooks. And again, it doesn't need to be sketchbook drawing, but that's what I had available. And I just went through and looked at some that I thought, wow, there's something here that I could work with larger or change or add to or take a portion of it or continue it as a concept. This is one of my cousin when he's in the hospital. Some of the other ones were scenery. This is from when I was thinking about doing a series on garbage bears. And after looking at all these, I decided this maybe would be more of a painting idea and that I'd rather pick from one of the ink drawings and kind of rework that in a different material and maybe a little bit bigger. So I picked this one, which is just some old storage sheds at my dad's house and some trees. And to work on this, I know I would want to use some oil pastels. I know I want to work mixed media, but again, you can pick. So it's up to you. And I'm going to start it with vine charcoal, which is a soft, really forgiving kind of charcoal. It's made from vine or willow sticks. There's willow charcoal tools. It's very similar. It is like it sounds. It's literally made from vines or willow that are processed in a low or zero oxygen environment. So I have a big piece of paper on the wall just so you can see it. I'm going to kind of keep the size again up to you. So I'm selecting this just for the purposes of a demo, but you could work bigger. I wouldn't work teeny tiny. You want to work large enough so that you have 2 weeks of, investment in the drawing. But thinking about it as if you do want to do a little bit more of like a series, maybe you want to do something a little smaller and do a few. For this particular drawing, I am going to say I want you to work in some kind of traditional medium. So even if your original is a digital drawing, do your revisitation in a traditional media. Traditional media would be things like graphite, charcoal ink, colored pencil, and you can work in multiple of those media, but something that's traditional media on a piece of paper or on some surface. So I'm doing my layout in vine charcoal. Again, real soft, smooshy charcoal sticks, kind of almost just they get to be a dark gray. They don't get super, super dark. And that's in part so that I can kind of smudge things out. I don't really have to go in and erase if I don't want to. And I'm going to be layering over this with other materials. You don't need to start with vine charcoal. I'm just kind of putting this in also as a review of different materials for folks, whether you've tried them or not. And some of you have the Drawing One kit or have the remains of it from Drawing One that had vine charcoal in it. I think that I'll show you different materials, but again, you can pick what you want to use. And I'm going to start the drawing in this video. And then next week, I'll post another video where I continue it and add color to the drawing. So I'm sort of working all over the place. Typically, when I talk about landscape, I advise people work back to front, and I'm doing almost the opposite. And that's in part because there's a lot of perspective in my sketch, and I actually took the measurements right from the sketch and kind of used my charcoal as like almost like a measuring tool, took that angle, and then moved it right into the big drawing. Now I'm going into brush pen. This is a water-based ink pen. This one's called a jumbo pit pen, but I'm doing this just so I get some really a little bit harder lines or cleaner lines that won't smudge around the same way as the charcoal. So going back to working back to front, I think when you're working with a drawing where you're working from a drawing. You don't necessarily have to work that way. I think it can be, it can create some ease of edge relationships. Now I'm adding ink wash, which is ink plus water, and the more ink you add, the darker the gray you'll get. I start out pretty light and then I add a little bit more black ink to my water, so it's a little darker. It also accumulates, it gets darker if you layer it. So think of it almost like permanent, it's like permanent black watercolor. It's got a little bit more character than just straight up black watercolor. So when you're working from a sketch or from a drawing, I think you can kind of work the page in a lot of different ways, especially since I'm not necessarily altering the relationships between the trees and the ground plane and the buildings. I started with the buildings because they were the most complicated thing with perspective, and then kind of moved in back and I'm kind of moving back and forth. So especially if you're going to do some layering, I think it's totally up to you. And then lastly, I'm adding ink wash to sort of build out the space. And right now, everywhere I added ink wash is really wet. So my plan is next week I will shoot another video where I add my oil pastels. And so I'll be adding them with these jumbo sticks and then smaller oil pastels. And you can use odorless mineral spirits if you want to thin those out and create kind of skeins of color. So for this week, do an intro post in D2L Brightspace, get your supplies. Do 3 gesture drawing drills. Those are just warm-ups, any material. So pick 3 things to do drawing drills on. And we do those very often every week just to warm up. And then start looking for your possible drawings to revisit for this project and start working on it. And if you have questions, you can email me at laura.andrews@minneapolis.edu or laura.andrews@riverland.edu. And have a great week.